Ladies and gentlemen, if you would, please bow your heads. Dear Lord, thank you for being with us tonight, with this council, with these fine folks who've come to join us as well. We ask your wisdom and strength to be passed to us to make the best decisions possible for the citizens of Monroe and her future. We always thank you for your grace, and we thank you for being with us tonight. Amen. Call this meeting to order. Let the record reflect, please, that all members of the council are present. I believe Mr. Bradley's on the phone. Larry, are you there?
Yes, I'm on.
Thank you. How you feeling?
Okay.
Good. Thank you for being here. Moving to the approval of the agenda, please. Need a motion?
So move.
I have a motion by Mr. Ross Bradley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Tyler Gregory. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. That passes. Moving to the approval of the consent agenda, which are council minutes, executive session minutes, and planning commission minutes from last month. I need a motion for the approval, please.
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Nathan Little. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Malcolm. Sorry, Tyler.
No, you're good.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. That passes. Moving to public comment. I have 4 folks here tonight. Let me just take a look at what we've got coming up. They all seem to be fairly separate, so you all each have 5 minutes. Ms. Susan Walker, regarding cameras on Church Street. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Good evening. I was just wondering, I've been here, I guess, 2 years now. And Church Street, I call them roundabouts. I'm not sure what the official name is for
That
them.
works.
But I know we have a lot of 18-wheelers. And I walk that street doing 3 miles with my friends every day. And that sidewalk is really close to those turnarounds. And I like them, but there are small children on that street, and those 18-wheelers fly up that street. We've had in the middle of the night at 10 o'clock, I heard this loud boom. They knocked the street signs out of the middle. It's very dangerous. And sometimes I walk, and it almost feels like the tractor 18-wheelers are going to fall over on top of me as I'm walking. I was wondering if we could not increase the fines to where I know our policemen are doing what they can do for us, and they're there as much as they can be. So I'm not blaming them. I think they're great. But can we not increase the fines to where if they do sneak down that road, which I don't even think they're supposed to be on that road, if they do sneak down it after one large fine and it's coming out of their pocket, they're going to quit. Or we now have a day school. Can't we do like Snellville and put up cameras and it's automatic? They come to court, I'm sorry, there's no qualms about it. You pay the fine, which is going to help Monroe as well as stop some of that traffic, because it's just going to take one small child getting killed. We've got a park there. We've got small children that play up to the sidewalk, and there's not even this amount of distance between that road and those 18-wheelers flying up that road. And that's my concern, is there not something that we could think about doing with the cameras? Because I'm telling you, there's no qualms about it in Snellville. They don't care what you say. You've gotten a fine, and it increases from 80, and it goes up to like 130, and it keeps going up. And people have to pay it. And if you have a school there, and now we have a school in Church, couldn't we do something like that?
Thank you for your comment. And that is, we had the discussion on school zone cameras last month, I believe, regarding the cameras taking pictures of the 18-wheelers. Those were 2 different things, different organizations, whatever. But we are looking at maximizing the fines, and we are going over and above in that particular area too. So you'll see more changes there in the coming weeks.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. Moving to Diane Wilson from 701 Davis Street. Ms. Wilson? Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm new to Monroe,
Welcome.
and I live at, like I say, 701 Davis, on the corner of Davis and Pine Park.
Yes, ma'am.
I called the code department to ask what the code was for a home business, And I was told that you could have one office inside your home. But there, where the duplexes are at Davis and Pine Park, there is a gentleman that I haven't seen money change hands, but I know he's running a business. He's working on cars, and there's approximately 8 to 10 cars there on that corner constantly. He goes off with a trailer-type truck and brings cars back. There are constantly people there, and I realize that's his home, and he has a right to have people there. But they're loud, they play music, they start early in the morning and sometimes goes to way after I can try to get to sleep. It's very loud, and I know the code department also told me that if you could hear it 50 feet away from where it's being played, it's too loud. I can hear it inside my house, it shakes the pictures on my walls. And the main thing for me is the music is very vulgar, horrible. There are little children that play around there, and they hear it constantly. They're racing up and down the street, just that short distance between Davis and Church on Pine Park. And I'd just like to know what can be done about that.
Thank you for coming in. Take one of these, please. That has my email on it. You email me anytime, and I'll put you in touch with our code office, and we will make sure that we're on top of that too. All right? Thank you for coming in. I don't know if this is Casey or Kay Kingen. Kay? Hey, thank you for coming. Oh, we met the other night. Good evening.
What I want to bring to you all to the attention of, and I'm sure you're aware of it, the drag racing that's going up and down Church Street, the guys that are running without tags on their cars, and they're also playing very vulgar music outside of their cars for everybody to hear. As a matter of fact, they'll sit when we're walking to make sure we're hearing what the music is saying. And the other thing I wanted to mention to you all, back on Davis Street, they're burning a lot. There's big black plumes coming up, and it smells like rubber or some kind of a chemical. I don't know what it is, but it scares me because those woods could catch on fire, and we haven't had a lot of rain, and also those buildings back there could catch on fire, as well as all of us on Church Street. Our houses could catch on fire too. So I just wanted to bring that forward to you all so you'd be aware of it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are we in the middle of a burn ban
Yes,
at the moment?
till October.
Okay, we'll definitely get by there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, yes, ma'am, thank you. Kim Jolly.
My name
Hey.
is Kim Jolly. I live on Felker Street. I just seen this report over here for the first time. How can we get this regularly about the offenses, things that have been taken care of?
Well, that was, so council knows, I got a request this morning texted to me for the numbers of violations and types of violations and all that. So Chief Watts pulled that. So if you would, in that particular, that kind of stuff, you can stay directly in touch with him. I think you have an open line, right?
I can, yes, I will.
Okay.
Since the last meeting, we've had like questions among our group, and some of those were answered on there, like how many citations have been given out since our last meeting? How many uninhabitable signs have been put out since our last meeting? These are the things that we're concerned about. We want to see improvement. How many tenants have complained since our last meeting? What is being done about the cars that are on cinder blocks? Is there a way to find out what streets are getting sidewalks or curbs? Those are the questions that we want to see answered. The other thing that I would like to say is we've noticed a lot more police presence on Felker. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Kim. If you don't mind, when you can shoot me a message anytime. I think you have all the numbers. And about the curb and gutter, because right now I couldn't pull it up off the top of my head, but I can at least research it and get it to you.
Is there a way that we can search for that kind of stuff?
Probably easier to just shoot me a message so I can just send you directly. I mean, you can go through previous council meeting minutes, and let me just make it easy on you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. And that is it for public forum. Moving to department reports, Mr. Probst.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Couple updates on items of interest. I'm continuing work with our engineers, Keck and Wood, on several projects of note. The Transportation's Alternatives Grant, which is a federally funded grant which links the North Broad LCI streetscape sidewalk project into downtown. That is in the right-of-way. We're applying for right-of-way acquisition right now. We've already done the design. We're expected to get that right-of-way acquisition, and then after that, then we'll put in for the construction funding. So it's a rather long process, but it's a very expensive project. So that's why it's taken quite a while. We anticipate 2024 to actually get to construction. But again, it's a multi-million-dollar project. Traffic calming, we're continuing to massage a lot of that public comment like I talked about last month. Some of that has involved additional survey efforts along North Midland, and then we're also looking at Felker Street, and then taking into account what we can do with the budget. I think we set about $500,000 for our initial scoping budget. That's a great deal of money for traffic calming, so we're trying to make sure everything stays, at least in concept, below that $500,000 number. So we're continuing to work on that. I hope to have something to you guys in fairly short order. I think Mr. Bailey will update you on some sidewalks here in a minute. The downtown green, we've continued to meet on. Sadie and I actually met last week and then continued again this morning with some design tweaks on the amphitheater and restroom facility that'll be out there. So those designs are going full bore into this phase 1 plan, which you've all seen. We're excited to get that going to break ground hopefully by the end of this year, November-ish is what we're shooting for. And one other big project we're working on with Keck and Wood is the Wayne Street streetscape, which is not only going to be a sidewalk enhancement in downtown, but also will enhance our stormwater drainage system, which is badly needed in that section of town. We are about 60% done with the construction design plans, and some of this will include utility relocations, probably some level of electric relocations along that line as well. So it'll really clean up that whole street. I also have been working with the Assistant District Traffic Engineer for GDOT District 1 on the Michael Etchison Highway 138 intersection. As you know, there have been numerous accidents there lately. It is a little perilous at times. What they've done is for the PM peak, so late afternoon, early evening, when the traffic is the heaviest, they've made the left turns protected at the light, where normally it's the flashing yellow all day. Now it's protected, it will be a dedicated turn. So we'll see how that works. They've also made some phasing changes at the intersection of 10 and 138, West Spring and 138, to see if we can get some better timing of the light sequences there, which will also, we think will impact, some of the drag racing effect that we see going down 138 at Michael Etchison. Ultimately, in all the wrecks we've studied, which has been over 70 in the past 4 years, just 2 or 3 last week, I believe, right? They're all driver error, impatient drivers. We'll do some public education on how that intersection works. I think there's a lot of confusion as well. If you're westbound on 138, making a left turn towards the Zaxby's at Michael Etchison, you have to yield across to you to the driver turning right up the hill towards the Zaxby's there. A lot of people are not yielding when they're making their left turn and causing a lot of accidents. So just want everybody to be aware of how that intersection functions. Take your time, be patient, and GDOT's made as many amendments to the light cycles as they can. So I do appreciate their efforts on that. That's all I have.
Are there any questions for
I
Logan.
got a question. I noticed you said you were working on the downtown green, but what I didn't notice is you said anything about Matthew Park. Where we at with Matthew Park?
That is coming up in Mr. Bailey's report.
Are there any other questions for Logan? Mr. Bailey, Central Services.
And I'll hit that part of it in the Parks report and kind of update y'all on what the plan and how bids came back when we get there. But to Central Services, grounds crew picked up 5,790 pounds of trash on street sides at different facilities during the month of June. And two, I wanted to let y'all know, 6 guys right now are at 160% of my overtime budget for the year, and that's through the end of May. They're covering 7 days a week, events, Friday night concerts, parks, downtown facilities, everything. So they are, I hate it that the budget's where it is on that, but it's one of those things that we've got to do as we continue to grow. And something that I think we need to look at next year's budget for either increasing the labor force or that overtime budget or something. Jumping into stormwater, the 2020 CDBG is currently out for bid on the construction side of it. Those bids will come back July 27th, at which point we will evaluate those, bring them to council for hopefully what'll be approval of the contractor to begin that process in August. And then currently the 2022 CDBG, the process for applying for that grant and for that part of it is out to bid for the grant writing services and the engineering services. So two things kind of going at once there. In the CIP, our stormwater, we're working on different improvements to areas that have been brought to our attention. Things are scheduled with contract labor and then staff labor as well, working with Mr. Steele and the streets crew, kind of tag team and everything. The one thing on sidewalks, North Madison from Spring Street to Edward Street, I believe it is. It's like a 1,200-foot section there at Rest Haven Cemetery where the sidewalk is currently at level or maybe in places below where the street level is. We're having Keckenwood kind of redesign how that stormwater system works there, sidewalk and the street as well, clean that up, then hopefully clean up fix the fence that's around Rest Haven as well during that project. Jumping over to kind of changing gears, Plaza, Police Department is in the process of the inevitable move. I know that's lots going on, transitions, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, making changes as we go. Phase 2 portion of that, which is the other stretch of that facility, we are currently in progress, setting the mechanicals off the roof, taking connections off the back, and then at which point they will replace the roof, repair it, and then they will do the exterior of that, which gets us closer to a lease-ready situation on the remainder of that shopping center. And then attached is the timeline that you guys had asked for 3-4 months ago. It's updates to everything. There's a lot going on. All the updates, all the changes are in red on that sheet. It's much easier to see on a computer where you can zoom in and actually see it. And I'll be glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Chris. Are there any questions for Mr. Bailey?
He didn't say anything about the parks.
He said he'd get to that. I do have a question for you, Chris. Did you say 160% your overtime budget for the year?
Yes, at the end of May. Because I've got 6 guys pulling 7 days a week, and it's just, there's a lot going on right now. And it's a good problem to have, essentially, because we have so much going on. And then trying to maintain the look of everything, and that kind of goes into tandem with that 5,800 pounds of trash that we've picked up.
Well, they and you are doing an outstanding job. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Moving to the monthly finance report, Ms. Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor. You have before you the finance report as of May 2021. Citywide revenues and expenses are as budgeted overall. What Chris alluded to is a line-by-line item, but overall that department's budget is in line. Our sales tax collection continues to increase year over year. We are slated to receive the 50% of our American Rescue Plan Act funds, which will be $2.5 million, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. There will be strict guidance on those funds and the use of those funds, and we will talk about those as a group in the next coming weeks and months. We are looking at a payment kiosk that'll be similar to an ATM for citizens to make a payment on their utility bill on the east side of town at the new police department and municipal court building, to hopefully utilize that side of town for utility customers. And we may also, if able, replace our drop box here with one as well. And what that does is that payment, as soon as a customer makes a payment with a credit card, debit card, check, or cash, that payment will be posted to their utility account immediately. And they'll get a receipt for that as well. So it'll take the place of our drop box and also give access to the other side of town for citizens, another option to pay their utility bill. We will be looking at mid-year budget reviews with department heads next month, and hopefully start rolling into that process for the budget year for 2022. It is right around the corner. And you also have before you the popular annual financial report. This is the summary of the comprehensive annual financial report that our auditors, Malden and Jenkins, presented to you last month. This is just a summary that is also on our website under financial documents, along with all our other financial reports. And I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions for Ms. Thompson? Hearing none, thank you, Beth, for putting together the PAFR, and I know you've been killing it back there in your office. Moving to monthly airport report, Mr. Bailey?
Thank you, sir. Couple quick updates on the airport. We had our biannual inspection on June 10th, and the good news is that's the cleanest report that we've gotten from the DOT in the 6 or 7 years I've been involved with the airport. It's just a couple of minor removals of brushy areas, raising a couple of areas where we just recently paved the runway and really haven't had a chance to backfill in like 2 construction areas to get the gap from the actual ground to the runway within 1.5 to 2 inches. So that was a good inspection. I was glad. I was praised more on the inspection than fussed at, which is a different from the norm. And then before council tonight is upcoming the resolution for the coronavirus response and relief supplemental appropriation. It was an act that was passed the end of this past year for additional funds to come for the airport. And barring any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Bailey? Thank you, Chris. Congratulations.
Thank
you. Solid Waste, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. My report is kind of short. Just want to put emphasis on 2 items. We'll be completing our distribution of the 65-gallon carts starting next week. We're going to be distributing to the Thursday customers, and their service will start July 22nd. For the ones that want to upgrade their 18-gallon bins to a 65-gallon cart, they can call our office at 770-267-6933, and we'll get it to them. Our glass collection, we did get other customers to sign up. We're up to 304 right now. And the only thing I have left is we're in the middle of our holiday collection. Tomorrow, we'll be servicing the Tuesday and Wednesday customers, and Thursday's customers will be on schedule. And I'll take any questions that you might have.
267-6933?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for Danny? Thank you, Mr. Smith. Moving to Streets and Transportation, Jeremiah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just highlighting a couple of things we currently got going on in the Streets and Transportation Department outside of the report. Over the last couple of weeks, we've had some good enough weather to and availability of some hot mix to do a considerable amount of utility patching throughout the city. We've completed the deep patching portion of our LMIG program, which includes Bryant, Pine, Crest, and Washington Street. So the deep patching portion of that next, looking at probably the end of August, having those streets milled, and then come in and pave over the top of that. So we're looking forward to getting into that part of the program and wrapping it up. We've completed roughly 700 plus feet of sidewalk rehab on East Washington Street. removed a little bit, put some asphalt back in a couple of places where we had sidewalk, to make that look a little bit better for aesthetic purposes. And over the next couple of weeks, we should be ready to pave the area on Green Street, West Marable, Nile, Irving, through that area where the new water line was put in that goes out to Publix. It should be passing all the pressure tests, and we've already done Mayfield in the intersection at Green Street and Carver, but within the next couple of weeks, we should wrap that up and be able to pave throughout that entire corridor of that project. I'll be glad to take any questions over the report or any of the other stuff we got going on.
Are there any questions for Jeremiah? Thank you, sir. Moving to electric and telecom, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll go over progress on a couple of projects on the pavilion up at Publix. Got about 99% of the feeder conduits in place, and that's for telecom and electric. Power is all in place and active in the back. The project is moving very quickly. They are on schedule to be done by end of the year and selling groceries sometime in January is what they're telling me, and I hope that's the case. But it is going well. There's been a few redesigns that we've had to move around. There's always issues between paper and dirt, and there's been a few, but we've worked through all those. The downtown lighting, if you've noticed, if you've been downtown lately, hope that looks as good as y'all think it looks as good as I think it looks. There's about 6 or 7 more on the south side of town. We finally got the parts in. We tried to get them a week or so ago, but we're still hung up here at Publix. We'll get those knocked out, but it is a good-looking fixture. We still have to do a little bit of trimming around some of the trees to get the light down to the ground, but I think that can be done later on in the fall when the trees need to be trimmed. We've got our first splitter cabinet for the fiber project up and running over on Selman Drive. We will be splicing that into this week, first of next week, and turning it on customers following week. The design for the rest of that area of town has been done. We're doing the final checks, and that material will be ordered shortly. A lot of the underground projects, the conduit's in place, and we're pulling fiber. So it's moving along quicker than it was to begin with. We got our processes down. Park Wi-Fi, the first unit is up and running down on Church Street at Pilot Park. It's free. I've got to get with Mr. Bailey, and we've got to sit down and figure out how to advertise that a little better, but it is up and running. We're working on getting one at Matthews and then one hopefully in the Pocket Park here shortly. The AMI project, well, not something we talk about a lot, but I think will impact our customers tremendously over the next few years. It's the project where we're automating the metering system where we can draw that data back. Basically, a customer will be able to see how much utilities they're using at a certain time. The more important thing is we'll be able to see if their water usage mainly, or gas, or even electric, is getting out of sync with what their normal activities are. We can warn them before they have a huge bill popping up. And then 78 and 11, we've got, and John, I was wrong, it's actually the northeast ramp where all the LED lights have been installed. So we're going to get, hopefully by the end of this month, get all the LED lights installed and turned up and get that project put to bed. And I'll take any questions y'all may have.
Are there any questions for Brian? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving to water, sewer, and gas, Rodney Middlebrooks.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just a couple of updates on some of our larger projects. On the gas, the Southview Drive turned into a whole neighborhood replacement. Crews have completed Southview, Bolton, Pierce, and Reese, and Olympia Way. All those mains have now been renewed, and the crews are currently tying over all the gas customers. The wastewater treatment plant rehab, contractors moving equipment in this week. Looking forward to get that one started. I think we're still a few months away from the actual plant equipment arriving, but he's got some work to do with the existing buildings and some dirt to be moved. The 24-inch raw water and the 20-inch finished water, the plans are sitting at EPD still, going through review. Hopefully we'll have those back here pretty soon. And the 18-inch that's being installed from the plant to the MAB development is moving very quickly. They've laid everything from MAB all the way up to now. So, looking to, that would be completed probably first of next month. So those guys have really turned it on. And the Loganville 20-inch transmission main, the startup technicians are scheduled to be here Monday to do a manual startup. And then we've got the chlorination for the pump station taking place next week as well. Hopefully, the control work can get completed and we can get this thing online and start selling Loganville some water. So, moving along. Got any questions? I'll be more than happy to try to answer those.
Are there any questions for Mr. Middlebrooks? Thank you, Rodney.
Thank you.
Chief Dykes, fire, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you will look at, excuse me, the report for May, we had a total of 252 incident responses, with 8 of those being fire. Continued with our normal trend of about 55% of our responses being emergency medical related. One thing I would like to note on the incident breakdown, we did not have any motor vehicle collisions versus pedestrians in May, which after the previous month, that is a good trend. And I did add an additional report on here just to show how well we work with Walton Fire with our aid responses. And for the month of May, we provided aid on their calls 7 times, and they provided aid to us a total of 7 times, which included a few structure fires. And our total incident loss on property was about $10,000 due to an apartment fire in the off Toller Street for the month, but we were able to confine it to the apartment of origin and prevent spread to adjacent units. And the only thing upcoming for this month, training-wise, is that we are assisting Walton Fire with their recruit class doing their live fire burns in our training facility later this month. I will be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Chief? Did you do the fireworks the other night? Did you do the fireworks the other night?
East Coast Pyrotechnics did the fireworks, but
you were on.
Our personnel were there standing by the whole time, yes.
Well, since I'm between you and RV, I'll tell you, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. I appreciate you. I mean, you're all the ones that get it done, and I admire both of you. So thank you. RV, Monroe monthly police report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. You got our numbers before you. You can see calls for service are going up, which is to be expected with COVID kind of going away. And, of course, we're in the summer months now and longer days, so we're seeing more activity. You can see our Part 1 and Part 2 crimes. Like I said, those numbers are going up. One major case that we had in the month of May was at 504A Cook Street. Our officers actually had stopped the vehicle. Turned out to be a stolen vehicle, and then after investigating further, they were able to make 5 arrests that were involved with a home invasion there at 504A Cook Street, and a total of 28 warrants were taken on all those individuals. One of the things, as Chris said earlier, we are currently in the transition from the old PD into new, and of course, I know it's been a long time coming. I know you guys were ready, and my guys are definitely ready. So everything it's nice to have a new building and it refreshed, and I thank the council and everyone for the support. But also, I want to introduce to you our newest member who is here tonight, Officer Caleb Jones, which is in the back. He just started FTO yesterday with Sergeant Haynes. He just recently graduated the police academy. And something unique about this officer is, prior to being a police officer, tell him what you were, Caleb. I was a pastor in a church. Amen. That's the kind of officer we need on the street.
Perfect. That is perfect.
We're hoping that this job doesn't change him. But I'll be happy to answer any questions if you should have any.
Are there any questions for Chief Watts? Thank you, RV. Mr. Kelly, Code.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report also covering the month of May. just hitting some of the highlights in it. We had 164 code inspections. We wrote 64 permits in that month. We had 16 new business licenses, and it says 2 closed businesses, but I just wanted to point out, those 2 businesses were actually just new ownership, so they're included in the new business total as well. Major projects, obviously, we still have the Monroe Pavilion going on, the row is in the slowest phase of finishing up their project. This is the part that drags out the longest, just getting it ready, but they're getting closer every day. Grace Monroe Church, moving right along. And the Ready Clinic complex up there next to Arby's is one of the major projects going on as well. We had 46 signs removed from the roadway by the city marshals. They wrote 250 repair cleanup notices in that month and investigated tampering cases and wrote 4 citations on those. And if you have any questions about any of that or the balance of the report or anything else, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Patrick. Are there any questions?
One question I have, I've noticed that we've increased a lot of residential business license. Are we keeping pretty close tabs on the fact that these are truly passive
Yeah,
businesses?
office only,
Office
residential.
only.
Yes. If they have a business license at a residence, it's for office only.
And I have a question, Patrick. It came up the other day with Lee, as a matter of fact. A store that has a beer and wine license has to be able to sell a certain amount of food, right?
Yes.
And is that something that code looks at? Is that Department of Revenue? How does that work?
Yes. Unfortunately, you just have to eyeball it. They are supposed to have 50% of their space up for storage and sales for items other than alcohol sales. So it could be anything other than beer and wine, but that's the line of delineation. We might have a couple skirting those parameters a little bit.
Does that include lottery tickets?
Sales other than beer and wine.
Yeah, that's what I was, all right.
Yes, sir.
And that's all dependent based off the report they submit to you, correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
It's
you.
dependent based off the report they submit to you.
The percentages, well, they don't present us with a percentage of sales by dollar volume. It's just by area, so it's dependent on the footprint or the floor plan of the business. We actually have one right now applying for a 3,600 square foot space over in the Quality Foods, and I'm questioning them on how they're gonna get there.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yes, sir.
Moving to economic development, Sadie.
Thank you very much. You have our report here. Kind of looking back at June, we had a great First Friday concert, and we had the Flower Festival until the rain came in. Those both went really well. Farmers Market is up and operational, and we're having incredible turnout for our farmers market. We're having 1,000, 1,500 customers on a Saturday, and between 40 and 50 vendors. So that's going really well this year. I think everybody's happy to have the market back in person. One thing from the report, just to point out, is we were awarded a certified local government grant to update our historic survey. So that'll get underway this year and be completed next year. And this keeps us in compliance with our historic preservation and our CLG status. So that's really great. We'll have our initial meeting with HPD this month to go over the administration of that grant. And just to let you guys know that we are put together a bicentennial planning committee, and we are looking to celebrate that entire week around the bicentennial, which is November 30th. We'll have details coming soon for events each of those days to commemorate our 200th birthday as a city. But that's coming together, and you see on there the next big events coming up. One is our all-day planning retreat for the Downtown Development Authority. We'll be doing that on Wednesday, July 28th. So if you have any input that you'd like us to consider as we modify and review our strategic plan for downtown development and tourism, please let me know, and we'll put that on our agenda for the board to review. And we'll give you an update of our plans once we complete those. You'll probably see those in August when we have those ready. And that's what we'll be working on for the next 12 months as a downtown.
Thank you, Sadie. Are there any questions? Ms. Kralzik? Not sure, those banners have been up just a few weeks, right?
Yes.
They look great.
Thank you.
So,
Bicentennial.
nice choice. Moving to the Parks Report, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, sir. Couple of quick things. Pilot Park still busy, busy. You know, every time you go by in the evenings, school's out, weekends, it's packed, looking great. I think question that was posed on Facebook was about if we needed anything else or what we liked, what we disliked. I think restroom was discussed as one of those primary things. That was something that we had looked at in the CIP for this year, depending on how pricing of everything goes, how the year looks. And then, Mr. Garrett, you asked about Matthews Park. As we had kind of discussed this morning, and as I had reached out to council members last week, either through text or phone call, pricing and bids came back around $520,000 total, and that is far and above kind of what we have the ability to afford right now for Matthews. And I felt like it was probably in our best interest to sit down in one-on-one, one-on-two sessions to where we can discuss at upcoming planning retreats to figure out exactly the placement of things, where we want to put stuff, what we're looking to spend, what we're looking to do, to make sure that we take this opportunity, because we only get one opportunity to build it, to make sure that we do the right things, that we put things where we want them, and to make sure that we develop this phase two. I know that for sure we'll pave. That'll have to be seal bid because of the unofficial kind of quote, what they came in. We'll take a look at additional pavilions. That'll also have to be seal bid based on the prices that came in. So no matter what we kind of looked at this week or this month, it still had to be seal bid and brought back to council and what would end up in September. So let's hope prices of lumber, as they're kind of starting to decline, helps us out, you know, saves us somewhere maybe around 5%. But just felt like we needed to have probably some further discussions before we really throw it out and we kind of start picking and choosing what we want and where, and make sure that we have proper placement. And that's kind of where Matthews is, and that was why, after talking with everyone, reaching out to everyone, just felt like the best thing to kind of do to be in the best interest of the city and to do exactly what we needed to for Matthews. And then two, we've got Keckenwood taking a look at the dam, taking a look at the standpipe that's currently not functioning. Right now, our only lake drainage is on the emergency spillway, and then that pipe is kind of functioning as our standpipe. So I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Are there any questions for Chris? Nicely done. I need to take a moment before we get to new business and apologize. I skipped over one of the nice people who came in to sign up for public comment. Would it be acceptable to just move to that, or do we need to motion to amend the agenda to allow for this one person before we go to new business?
You're just adding the public comment from prior?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you can go back to it.
Okay. Ms. Sams? I am sorry, I saw Kim Jolly's name, got all excited.
Unimportant, I got it. No, I just kind of wanted to touch base on some of the things that we talked about at the last meeting. So I do believe that we're moving in the right direction, but I still feel like there's room for improvement to press on some of these, as we've taken to calling them slumlords, to maintain their properties. We have some laws and codes that are already in place that we could use to improve these situations. Chief Watts and Mr. Kelly have been doing a great job, but we just need to continue to stay on that situation and keep pressing. The low-income families in Monroe deserve better. They do. We need to use every avenue available that we can to force these property owners to maintain their properties, to stop taking advantage of people who are struggling to just barely get by. Low income does not mean that you have to live in deplorable conditions. Just since the last meeting, I'm sure some of y'all are familiar with the Nextdoor app, my husband and I became involved in assisting some tenants who were living in some deplorable conditions. The landlord never made updates to the home. There was no heat, air conditioning, animal feces on the floor, rats running around freely. There was a flea infestation in the house that's like something from a horror movie. It's pretty gross. There's 2 apartments in that home. One of the tenants shared with me that in the first 2 nights that they moved in, they considered walking away because the smell and her daughter was scared of hearing the rats in the walls. But they couldn't because unfortunately they were in a situation where they didn't have anywhere else to go. And they had taken all the money that they could pull together to pay a first and last month's rent on this property. She has been able to find somewhere to go since then. And there was a tenant in the front apartment, and her situation was much more complex. She had some medical disabilities, and there was, I was hoping that she would be here tonight, but one of our citizens here in Monroe really just went over and above to get Adult Protective Services involved to help just get her in a better situation. Several of us, some of my super awesome peeps over here, we pulled together, we paid for hotel rooms, we brought her food, someone rehomed her animals. We came up with about $1,500 in cash in 4 days to help this woman move her to a better situation. That's just one story out of dozens. This is happening all over our city, and it's just not acceptable. You know, these people are at the mercy of these slumlords in Monroe. And we need to do something to make them responsible landowners. It's okay to have rental property, but you need to maintain it. We also need to stop letting these people dispute their property taxes. I've watched my property taxes increase in the last 2 years, and I'm not here to complain about that. And I pay them dutifully. That's the way it should be. However, I am aware that one of these slumlords just a week or so ago disputed over 300 of their property values, stating that some of these properties are even considered salvage. I'm sorry, but if a property is considered salvage, someone should not be allowed to live there. And how do you rent a property that's considered salvage to someone? Sorry, I'm a softie for people. That's where I get a little upset when people get taken advantage of. So I ask that the city get with the county, do whatever we can do to ask the county to stop granting these people reprieves on their property taxes and lowering the values for whatever reason. Actually send someone out to the property, check it out. If it is salvage, that's great. Let's get our code department involved and make sure no one's living on that salvage property. Another suggestion I have is that maybe our city utility guys who are out there you know, doing repairs, doing disconnects and reconnects, can they report code violations? Can there be some sort of incentive for them to say, hey, look, this house is in really bad shape. We've just connected the utilities here for the 30th time this year. What can we do to help these people who don't have a choice? You know, Mr. Garrett, you mentioned last time, where do these people go? You're right. But there has to be options for these people. I realize that we can't, I'm not here to run them out of town. Nobody's here to run them out of town. We just want them to have better options. And I think that comes from us asking these landowners to take better care of their properties through whatever avenue that we have to do that. So Monroe is a fantastic place to live. Our mayor says it nicely that it's the best small town in America, and I agree with that. I know my people over here agree with that, and we just want to do what we can as homeowners to keep Monroe going in the right direction. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Julie. Kind of glad I took a break between sessions and skipped over you. Thank you for saying that. Julie and Shauna Matthias met with Lee Malcolm and me last week. We've gone over a lot of that, and I appreciate your mentioning all of everything, but we specifically talked about what was happening with that particular duplex. We've spoken with the owner. Mr. Kelly's been on it. Our team has, and I appreciate your kind hearts. I'm with you. So moving to new business, preliminary one more time. Preliminary plat review, 961 Good Hope Road, Brooklyn Commons. Mr. Kelly.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you said, this is a preliminary plat approval application at 961 Good Hope Road. The Planning and Zoning Commission has reviewed the plat as has staff, and we made recommendations for corrections at that meeting. Planning and Zoning recommended approval with those corrections. They have since made those corrections, and as soon as we have physical copies available, we'll present them to you for signing, should you and the council choose to approve them tonight.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Patrick?
What was the number of units? Was it 125?
142.
142, I believe. 142 was the highest lot number, so yeah, I believe that's correct. 142.
You good, Lee?
And there are two entrances.
Sorry?
There are two entrances,
Yes,
one on each end, right?
yes.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. David Dickinson. Is there a second?
Second.
Nathan? Ross? Second by Mr. Ross Bradley. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to the preliminary plat review of 605 Alcovey Street, Birchfield's on Alcovey. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, sir. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. This is very similar to the previous application. This is at 605 Alcovey Street. They only have 14 lots. But they had some technical corrections to make on their plat. They have done so. We are in possession of those physical copies. We'll get the owner to sign those and present those to you for signature, should you choose to approve them this evening.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for Patrick? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Ms. Lee Malcolm. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gregory. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to the tentative allocation request.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Make one minor correction. There's only 13 lots. It was 14 originally planned. Couldn't meet the zoning requirement, so it went down to 13.
All
My
right.
apologies.
Thank you. And the 13 is written and the 13 is in the motion. Moving to the tentative allocation request for the terminal building, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, sir. It is exactly what you just said. It is a request for the approval of a tentative allocation that we received for the acceptance of funds to build a terminal building at the airport. It's not really common that an airport of our size or our traffic level is approved for two major projects in back-to-back state fiscal years. We were fortunate enough to get the 95% allocation through grant funding to pave the runway that we just finished here 2-3 months ago. And now we have received the tentative allocation to build a terminal building up to $550,000, of which $25,000 of that would be our responsibility that would go into the 2022 budget, at which point we'll discuss it at that time. But this is asking that I'm asking you guys for approval to sign the intention that we plan on utilizing this 75% grant money to build a terminal building at the airport, which would be a huge, huge benefit to our airport, and I think could really move us forward towards changing kind of the game and the purpose of what our airport exists.
Awesome, Chris. Thank you. Are there any questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
A motion by Mr. Ross Bradley to approve. Second?
Second.
Norman, Garrett? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes.
Thank you.
Nicely done, Chris. Congratulations. Moving to the discussion of or approval of the police department parking lot rehab. Mr. Still.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, we're seeking approval for a rehab of majority of the parking lot around the new police department facility. If you look in the package, there's two pictures, but one of them's got yellow parameters around the area. That's the main parking lot, 2, 3 entrances from Blaine or North Hammond, as well as two other rear entrances from the North Hammond in the curve back there. What's going to happen is there's a significant amount of crack sealing needs to be done in that area, but there's even more vegetation in those cracks. So we'll come in, get rid of all the vegetation in the cracks, seal those cracks, seal coat the entire area, as well as stripe it back as it was originally, which will provide really nice aesthetics moving forward to that facility. It is in desperate need of that, so we're recommending Blunt Construction Company in a total amount of $34,487.55. Seeking approval to do that, and it's coming out of SPOS funding. I'll be glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Are there any questions?
I did want to note, since it's coming out of SPOS, that front area in front of the police department, that is all going to be designated public parking.
Perfect. Thank you, Logan. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Dickinson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gregory. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, does this include any trees or vegetation islands in the parking lot?
No, Mr. Bradley, this does not, that's going to be another phase that we're working on right now with the master plan, with LAS, the design consultants, you guys approved a couple of months ago. So we are in the middle of that design process. So that'll be a later phase of this project. This just gets it all in good shape to be able to use right away.
Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Excuse me. Moving to the phone system upgrade or repair, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor. Bring y'all up to speed real quick. A little while ago, about a month or so ago, our phone system started acting erratically. This is the phone system that runs every department in the city, from City Hall, out to the police department, the fire department, public works. Started acting crazy, for lack of a better term. It would shut off randomly. Ms. Thompson's staff would usually be the first ones that would alert us. We would restart it, come back online, but we would lose phone connectivity for 10, 15 minutes or longer if someone didn't notice it. Did some investigation, found out that the software and server were just unstable and pretty much irreparable. Been working with a vendor that we've been working with on this for the past 7 or 8 years, Digitel, and we at first thought we were going to have to replace the whole thing, the whole lock, stock, and barrel, which would have been a very expensive procedure. But we came up with a solution to replace the software and server for the phone and the voicemail. This includes Digitel staff coming out at night to do this overnight. We've got a procedure in place to make sure our after-hours company answers those phones over the night, and that comes up to $14,961.58. I'll take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions?
Just out of curiosity, what determines the life expectancy of a phone system?
It's software, Mr. Bradley, so it depends on the manufacturer or the provider of that software. They've end-of-lifed the software, and we knew that was coming. We were looking at something in the CIP next year. We just didn't make it that far.
Are there any further questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
A motion by Mr. Nathan Little. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gregory. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to the approval of the valve insertion, Mr. Middlebrooks.
Thank you, Mayor. Asking for your approval tonight to have a 16-inch valve inserted into the force main, which would be the discharge side of the Ammons Bridge pump station. This is to provide safety for our guys when they remove the pump that we're currently replacing. The valve that's attached to that pump is stuck in an open position. So when it's removed, any sewage that's in the force main from Ammons Bridge over to Vine would flood the building and possibly drown the guys. I'm not sure they could get out quick enough. So we're asking, this is the only company that would even do this. Consolidated Pipe and Supply at $27,700. Reason the only one, the others will only use their equipment for water insertion valves because of the disinfection that has to be done before it can be used again. So
what you're saying is
we don't use them for our water taps.
You don't want our guys drowning in poop?
No.
Thanks.
That's the reason there was only one bid.
That's gross. Are there any questions for Rodney? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Motion to approve by Mr. Bradley and a second by Mr. Little. Correct, Nathan? Hearing none, I'm sorry. Any discussion? Now, hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, passes. Moving to the appointment of the Historic Preservation Commission, Krista Carroll, who's served in this position for as long as I can remember, has resigned her position effective June 1st. Ms. Jane Camp, who has been a long-time member of our community, has applied to fill the unexpired term of Krista for the Historic Preservation Committee, and I needed a motion to appoint Jane Camp to fill her unexpired term that will expire on May 1st, 2022. Do I have a motion, please?
Move to approve, Mr. Camp.
I have a motion by Mr. Little. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ross Bradley. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to the second reading of the ordinance to amend the official zoning map. Mr. Rosenthal?
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance to adopt the official zoning map of the City of Monroe, Georgia. The Mayor and Council of the City of Monroe hereby ordain as follows. Article 1, the official zoning map, City of Monroe, Georgia, as shown in the attached Exhibit A, attached hereto and incorporated here fully herein by reference, and currently being displayed at this public meeting, and having been made available for public review at City Hall at all times since May 3rd, 2021, leading up to its adoption pursuant to Georgia law, is hereby made the official zoning map of the City of Monroe, Georgia. This map is a public record and shall be kept on file at City Hall, 215 North Broad Street, Monroe, Georgia, in the records of the city clerk. Article 2, all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith are hereby repealed. Article 3, this ordinance shall take effect from and after its adoption by the mayor and the council of the City of Monroe, Georgia. This constitutes the second reading this 6th day of July, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Are there any questions for Paul? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move.
A motion by Ms. Malcolm. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dickinson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to the second reading of the zoning ordinance code text amendment, number 10. Mr. Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance of the City of Monroe, Georgia. The mayor and the council of the City of Monroe hereby ordain as follows. Article 1, the zoning ordinance of the City of Monroe officially adopted June 10, 2014, effective July 1, 2014, as thereafter amended, is hereby amended by implementing the below text amendment as follows. This is the 10th amendment dated July 6, 2021. Table of contents, Article 6, use provision by district is amended in Section 620, 640, 645, and 646. Article 3, Section 310, Table 1, districts is hereby amended. Article 3, Section 310.1 is hereby amended. Article 5, Section 520.2 is hereby amended. Article 5, Section 570 is hereby amended. Article 5, Section 570.1 is amended. Article 6, Section 620 is hereby amended. Article 6, Section 620.2. Article 6, Section 620.3. Article 6, Section 620.3, Table 5. Article 6, Section 640. Article 6, Section 645 is hereby amended with Figure 1, Section 645.5, 45.6, 45.7. Article 6, Section 646 is hereby amended by adding Section 646, Central Business District Overlay, with 646.1, Intent and Purpose, 646.2, Overlay District, 646.3, Permitted Uses, 646.4, Original Central Business District, 646.5, Application to Planning Commission for Certificate of Appropriateness, 646.6, Special Design Standards and Exceptions for the CBD Overlay. Article 7, Section 700.2 is hereby amended. And Article 2, all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith are hereby repealed. Article 3, this ordinance shall take effect from and after its adoption by the mayor and the council of the City of Monroe, Georgia. This constitutes the second reading this 6th day of July, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Are there any questions for Paul? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to adopt.
A motion by Mr. Dickinson to adopt. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ross Bradley. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to the resolution of the naming of the Matthews Park Disc Golf Course. Mr. Bailey?
First thing I wanted to ask, are there any members of the Walton County Disc Golf Club or John Reed's family in the audience tonight? I'd seen a Facebook post going around where I was thinking there would be a couple members. In March of this year, the club actually sent a letter to the city, at which point it kind of finally found its way, I think, to the appropriate people to kind of take a look at being able to do this, requesting that that the course be named after John Reed, who had tragically passed away after suffering a heart attack, and I think had a wife, 5 children. One of the big things that they had stated in this letter, and some of the things I've found out about him, was that one of his many passions was disc golf. He spent quite a few evenings, a lot of time at Matthews Park, helping to build the course, helping to essentially rejuvenate that park prior to the city taking it back. And just his dedication to the park and for, what he did, asking that we rename the course in his memory, and then hold a tournament in his namesake at some point this year. And then one thing, too, I wanted to, after walking the course numerous times, seeing certain signage that's missing at different holes. And if you've never played disc golf, it's the same as the little round white ball. It's just you're throwing a disc or a frisbee. I'm good at one, not the other. But we want to replace a lot of the signage throughout to make sure that we get the diagram of the course, which is actually attached to this agenda item, on each of those tee boxes. And then I have our sign company that we typically use for facilities making a sign that we'll put at the entrance to the park and on the first hole that actually renames it the John Reed Memorial Disc Golf Course at Matthews Park. And this is the resolution to make that official.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Are there any questions for Chris?
Mayor, I'll move we approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Ross Bradley to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gregory. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. But before moving to the next item, disc course was put together by that group of folks, led by John and Ashley Schneier and Stephen Powell, just a group of folks who are very active. And we up here as a council, and in my position as mayor, have the opportunity to make some decisions that influence the way our town moves. But it really does not move forward in the proper direction without people taking ownership, which is why I'm glad that the group from the Felker Church, South Broad area has come in taken action and taken it upon yourselves to help us steer this ship. So in a similar vein, they did a lot of work putting together that golf course and have maintained it and taken care even as that park decided that it was going to fall into a state of disrepair before we could bring it back. So it just means a lot that they were here and that y'all are here. I'm going to move to the resolution of the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriation Act. Mr. Bailey?
Thank you. This is what I had mentioned earlier in the airport report. It's just a required resolution that the city goes through process of accepting so that we can get the second portion of the supplemental money to equal $13,000 that is for use and reimbursement of expenses incurred during the whole pandemic situation that we went through in 2020 and hopefully is easing in 2021 just a bit.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Are there any questions? Hearing none, Mr. Rosenthal?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a resolution of the Mayor and Council of the City of Monroe, Georgia, authorizing the acceptance of the GDOT contract for CRRSA Act funding associated with the Cy Nunley Memorial Airport in Monroe, Georgia. Whereas the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriation Act signed into law on December 27, 2020 includes nearly $2 billion in funds to be awarded as economic relief to eligible U.S. airports and eligible concessions at those airports to prevent, prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic, whereas the City of Monroe has applied through GDOT to receive its CRRSA Act formula allocation of funding through the submission of a CRRSA Act application, whereas through the submission of this application, the City of Monroe has accepted the terms of FAA's allocation offer to utilize its funding in a manner that fully complies with the CRRSA Act, other federal laws and regulations, and applicable FAA program requirements. Whereas the City of Monroe desires to request reimbursement for costs and operating expenses at the Cy Nunley Memorial Airport by submitting reasonable and customary documentation for payroll, operational, and debt service costs. Whereas the City of Monroe will receive a contract from the GDOT contract Walton County to provide reimbursement for the above noted costs and expenses up to a maximum of $13,000, of which $13,000 will be federal funds, no state funds, no local match. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Monroe authorizes the mayor, attorney, and staff to execute such documents that may be necessary to fulfill this request for federal assistance and accept a contract from the GDOT to include the federal funds. So resolved the 6th day of July, 2021, Mayor.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions for Mr. Rosenthal? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
A motion to approve by Mr. Nathan Little, and I think a second by Mr. Gregory.
Mr. Ross Bradley.
Oh, so y'all are sounding alike, and I guess
I'll start raising my hand.
Mr. Ross Bradley, Mr. Tyler Gregory, second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody, for putting that together. Moving to the resolution of the American Rescue Plan Act funds. Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor. This is to authorize the City of Monroe the acceptance of grant funds in the amount of $5,995. This is where the president signed back in March, I believe, to aid local government in responding to and recovering from the pandemic. This will be coming through the State of Georgia Office of Planning and Budget, and we will be getting a single audit on these funds over the next, through 2026, I believe.
$2.5 million per year, thereabouts?
We get 50% when we get that from the state of, which will be hopefully in the next couple of weeks. We've already been approved for it. We're just waiting on the funds to show up in our bank account. We'll get 50% this year and then 50% 12 months later.
Great. Thank you, Beth. Are there any questions for Ms. Thompson? Hearing none, do we need to go to Paul for this?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. This is a resolution of the City of Monroe to authorize the execution of the American Rescue Plan Act Terms and Conditions Agreement, to authorize the acceptance of grant payments, including all understandings and assurances contained within such agreement, to direct and authorize the person identified as the official representatives of the city or the designee of the city to act in connection with the grant application and provide such additional information as may be required. Whereas Congress authorized the disbursement of coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds under the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, to aid local government in responding to and recovering from the coronavirus pandemic, and whereas said funds will be distributed to the City of Monroe by the Georgia Office of Planning and Budget following the completion of an application for funding as well as registration with certain federal programs, including the System for Award Management, the SAM program, and compliance with the guidelines, terms, and conditions specified by the United States Department of Treasury. And whereas the city desires to authorize the finance director and city administrator to complete and execute all documents required online for the disbursement of funds, to establish an account for the receipt of said funds, to authorize the mayor to execute originals of all documents required to participate in the ARPA program, and to ratify actions taken by the mayor, finance director, and the city administrator. And whereas the city desires to develop a program specifying the use of funds dispersed to the city under the ARPA program, and requests the city administrator to prepare a list of recommended eligible uses for submittal to the mayor and council for its approval, and be therefore resolved by the Council for the City of Monroe that it authorizes the mayor, finance director, and city administrator to execute all documents necessary to apply for, accept, deposit, and report on local recovery assistance dollars under the ARPA program, ratify said documents, and directs the finance director and city administrator to provide the mayor and city council quarterly reports of the ARPA program and the city's participation in said program following approval by the city of eligible projects. This resolution shall be effective immediately upon its adoption this 6th day of July 2021. That is the resolution, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Are there any questions for Paul? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Gregory. Is there a second?
Second.
I'm going to go with Lee Malcolm. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. There was one more resolution that I'm going to go ahead and take, if you don't mind. It's the resolution of Mayor and Council of the City of Monroe authorizing the naming of Matthews Park Disc Golf Course. I stepped over it after we made the motion. Whereas the City of Monroe owns and operates Matthews Park for the benefit of its citizens and visitors, and whereas the City of Monroe desires to name the Matthews Park Disc Golf Course to honor the late John Reed, a former member of the Walton County Disc Golf Club, which helped maintain the park and rejuvenate the course, and whereas the City of Monroe wishes to recognize the servant leadership displayed by John Reed and his many acts of selfless giving to others and community betterment through efforts at Matthews Park, and whereas the mayor and city administrator, after formal request by the Walton County Disc Golf Club, have determined that the naming of the Matthews Park Disc Golf Course will allow for a proper appreciation of the accomplishments, achievements, and steadfast advancement of Matthews Park by John Reed. Now therefore be it resolved by the mayor and council of the City of Monroe, Georgia, that the City of Monroe hereby approves the naming of Matthews Park Disc Golf Course to the John Reed Memorial Disc Golf Course at Matthews Park. Be it further resolved that the city administrator is authorized to execute any and all documents necessary to carry out the terms of the resolution. So resolved the 6th day of July, 2021. City of Monroe, John Howard, Mayor, and I list all council members' names as well. So, thank you. Moving to the approval of our August meeting schedule, we did have a little change there. Mr. Probst, I think is going to discuss with you about our conflict.
Thank you, Mayor. Real briefly, we're requesting to do another combined work session, regular council meeting, just like we're doing right now, but do it on August 3rd because the Georgia Municipal Association has rescheduled their annual convention, which is normally held in late June, into August, and that'll conflict with the August 13th date. So that's about the best we can do on the calendar without interfering with planning and zoning and historic preservation and so on and so forth. So if that is okay with you all, I know it's imperative that a lot of you be there for your mandatory training. That's about all we can do.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Probst. Are there any questions? Mr. Bradley, you have a question? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Malcolm. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Tyler Gregory. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. We'll skip over the mayor's update tonight, but I do need a motion to adjourn to executive session, please.
So moved.
A motion by Mr. Ross Bradley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Greggy. Are all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. We will adjourn to executive session. Thank you, everybody.